Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast online radio and TV network. Our mission is to restore vitality to you and to the planet. I'm Scott. Martin is joining us, our health coach, as usual. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
Good. Trying to get over my autoimmune diseases, but we're working it out. I'm just like most of the viewers, like I have been wrecked by the civilization and the indiscriminate living in this wrong environment. And if you can't see it, I'm not going to name it, but I'm trying to recover.
Cool. So we have a very special guest today. Why don't you introduce him?
Indeed. So today we have with us a very special man, Ken Campbell. He is the principal of a company that we have started carrying products of, have been for a while. I have had an experience with it. Instead of me trying to say in my words what I think I remember about Ken's very rich and deep experience, I would like him to tell us. Ken Campbell is the CEO and president at Ken, what do you call your company?
Well, the name of the company is Freedom Functional Foods, and what we really look at doing is we're looking at getting really high amounts of enzymes and nutrients into the body.
All right, and that's awesome. Why would people care about enzymes and nutrients in the body?
Well, my background, I'm an agronomist, okay, and in looking at the food initially, I was actually looking at it as an animal feed, and chicken feed specifically. And over the last, now it's got to be about 120 years, is a lot of scientists, in working with animals, they do what is called a bioassay, but it's been known that a germinated seed just has high nutrients. And probably about 20 years ago here right now, I had been doing some research. I looked at a lot of the results on sprouted grains, and with the research that had been done earlier, 50% of the time they had incredible results, okay? And the other 50% of the time it was negative or no difference. And both ends were correct, but nobody had connected the dots to see why the germination was working on one sense and not working on the other. So what I did, I developed a process, and I'm able to get super high digestibility, running 95 to 97%, and seeds in themselves will have up to 400 times more nutrients than the same plant material on a pound-for-pound basis. Now, go ahead.
I guess to really stress the point, right? The plant stores its life energy into the seed so that it can push a new plant into life. That's why the concentration is so much higher in the seed, correct?
That's right. And so if you look at all the different animals, and cattle, of course, they have the highest digestibility. They have got 4 stomachs, and currently when they roll and crush grains and they add enzymes and do what they have to do, they can only get 53% digestibility.
So in the best results, trying to feed cows or whatever, pigs, chickens, with grains, half of what is being fed to them actually just passes through without being utilized in any way.
That's correct. And so what I did here, Martin, I developed a procedure that I could get that potential energy, the enzymes, the nutrients into the organism. And I've had one person call, because on the testimonials, as far as adverse effects and things like that, he said he was getting up in the morning and he was scratching the floor and he was crowing. And of course, he was joking because he knew that it was initially it was designed as a chicken food.
So what were you doing at that point? Were you working for the government, or what was your role then?
I have done this all privately, and I was actually I had developed a process on how to synchronize the germination of the seeds, and that is part of the problem that that they actually had when they were doing the germination. Each seed is an individual, just like people are individuals. And what I had to do was initiate the chemical portion of the germination on all the live seeds exactly at the same time. Had to be able to break the dormant seeds all at the same time so that the seeds will start to germinate equally in a minute or two. As the seed then progresses in the germination process, there's different enzymes that are produced, and that is probably the biggest thing with the barley, is that it acts as one seed, and all the enzymes and nutrients are coordinated so that they can be assimilated into people very, very efficiently.
That's great. And so again, that results in that process that's quite unique. This is not a commonly available process. Like, I have not found anybody else using this method.
No, the synchronization of the seeds, I call it the GEM process. That's an acronym for the germination enhancement method. And prior to the germination enhancement method, I had developed a process, I call it the density alteration process, and literally I changed the densities in organic matter. So one of the other main keys is to be able to separate the dead seeds from the live seeds, because the dead seeds are literally a rotten apple in the barrel. So that's the first thing that we do. We remove the dead seeds. I mean, the seed comes to us as a food grade product, but it goes through a secondary seed cleaning process where the dead seeds are removed, and it's surprising how many other things that I still remove from that food grade product.
Okay, so this is not a small matter, because when you leave that unwanted seed in the mix, that's not just that it doesn't do anything, it actually has a negative influence, right?
Oh, big time. Big time. And then, of course, as it goes through the GEM process, okay, each seed has to be given the exact amount of water it needs, okay? Now, that's like taking, a room full of people, and if you said, who's thirsty, some people will raise their hands, and you give them an 8-ounce glass of water. Some people will sip on it. Other people will drink it all, maybe ask for another glass. The same thing ends up happening with seeds. And to start that initial chemical process of germination, if you start to give the seed way more than that, then it's kind of like, oh, gee whiz, Martin, you're thirsty. Here's a 5-gallon bucket of seed, or of water. Drink all of this. Well, you can't. And of course, a lot of people, as soon as they start to germinate seeds, they'll soak the seeds like for 24 hours. Well, you're thirsty, so I'm going to hold you at the bottom of a swimming pool for 24 hours. It has detrimental effects, and it has it on the seeds. The GEM process is very, very quick. The seeds are in contact with water, maybe 10 seconds, and each seed imbibes exactly what it needs to initiate that chemical process of germination. So nothing is being damaged. We're not getting leachate going into the water or the loss of nutrients, nothing like that.
All right, great. So now we have then perfect quality seed to start with, and we are uniformly bringing it to full life. And this is the enzymatic activity that you mentioned.
Yes.
And then what we do with it? Then we
Well,
mill it.
well, yeah, and see, initially when I was doing my tests with the chickens, and we talk about enzymes, all right, what in animal feed, what scientists do or what farmers do, they will add specific enzymes. So with barley, there would be amylase. With wheat, of course, they put in glutenase, all these different enzymes. Now, what in the initial tests that they were doing, they found that as soon as they added the enzymes, there was no difference, or there was no significant difference whether they added the enzymes or they didn't add the enzyme. And I asked a very simple question. I said, well, you know, does the seed really want to digest itself? And the answer is no. And of course, there's over 4,000 different enzymes that our bodies use, but also that plants produce. And of course, the combination that the plant produces is going to not digest itself, but it's going to allow for growth. Now, and they're discovering new enzymes all the time. So the barley is a whole food, but it has all these enzymes. It's just not specifically digestive enzymes. Yes, it affects the digestive enzymes, like I say, as high as 97%, but you're getting the complete combination. It's just not consistently in medicine or in agriculture. They always talk about, well, what's the active ingredient? Well, it's just not one enzyme. It's the complete.
Yeah, it's the team.
Spectrum.
Yeah, the team, the family.
Yeah, and what you may use is different than what I may use or another person may use. But first off, what we have to do, once we get those seeds synchronized, and there's certain enzymes that I'm looking for. One of them specifically is the superoxide dismutase. And with superoxide dismutase, when you harvest plants, within 10 minutes, you will lose up to 80% of superoxide dismutase and other enzymes. And the third process that I had to determine was, how do I now stabilize these enzymes? And I call that my nutrient stabilization process. But 10 minutes worth of deterioration now takes 3 years. Okay? So how many people can go and harvest something from the garden, get those fruits or vegetables back into the house, and eat them within 10 minutes? It just doesn't happen.
Right. Okay. That's the full availability of the whole goodness of the plant, right?
Of those enzymes, okay? So here with the barley, I've stretched that out over 3 years. So when they look at the best before date, that's 3 years down the road. Now, would you empty out your fridge because it's the fruits and vegetables are 10 minutes old? Probably not. But I had to have some sort of a marker that would say, well, it's best before this date, not saying that you need to throw it out. Certainly, we try to keep all the product with a very high time element on the expiration date.
Right. But, so I hear you say that it would take 3 years to be less fresh than 10 minutes old on a freshly picked tomato or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So they're getting an extremely fresh product. The seeds are acting as one seed. We're balancing those enzymes. And some of the other interesting things about barley, the more that I researched it, barley is extremely high in glucosamine. And glucosamine is necessary to repair the intestine. And as we started digging deeper on this, the very first organ in the body to start to die is the intestine. It starts at about age 25. So soon as we started getting this product into people, we saw huge healing that was occurring within the intestine. And of course, there's the organ that's going to get nutrients in, toxins out. You start getting that balanced, and then all of a sudden you start working on the other organs. The second organ that tends to be working, or the product is working on, are the kidneys. Then from the kidneys it goes to the liver. Then from the liver it goes into the circulatory system, and then throughout the whole body. And it tends to get the minerals and the nutrients in there, that the building blocks that the body needs to repair itself. It is the genius. As much as we think that we know so much, and you know, our universities and doctors have all this knowledge there, your body knows how to repair it. We just have to get the building blocks in there to do that.
Yes. Now, I just remembered something. You told me that you use barley, but it's not any barley. It's barley that's grown specifically for you by farmers that you contract, and you actually work with the soil.
Yes.
Would you be able to tell me more about that?
Oh, sure. Certainly, like in the growing end, what ends up happening is when farmers take their grain to the elevator or they're selling it, they get paid on the bushel weight. Okay. Now the standard bushel weight for barley is 48 pounds. All right.
Bushel is so many gallons.
Yeah, it's a volume. Okay. So within this volume, when you level it off, there's 48 pounds of barley. Now, needless to say, if you have a very low bushel weight, you've got a very low quality, and if you've got a higher bushel weight, you've got a higher quality. Now, with the number one barley, it comes in at about a 56, 57 pound bushel weight. All right, so you're looking at, I'd have to down and work back there at percentages, but a significant percentage higher than what the standard is. So within that volume, you are getting more compressed nutrients. Now,
yeah, nutrient density, indeed.
That's right. Now, if we go into the number two barley, we're running anywhere from 67 to 70% or 70 pound bushel weights. So our percentage, we're almost, well, we're over 40% higher bushel weights. And so consequently, like a tablespoon of the number two barley, you're going to have a lot more nutrients. Now, to accomplish this, it is within, we have a program whereby the farmers utilize this to be able to get these very, very high bushel weights. And just popping back to the digestibility, when originally we had the products analyzed, what we were doing, we were taking protein levels, and soluble proteins were increasing by 500%. The protein values themselves were increasing on an average by 50%. And the question that came back to me was, well, what are you adding to do this? And all I was adding was water, but it was the gem process that we were able to synchronize. Now, in looking at the analyses, you'll notice that the fiber content actually is reduced in the barley. And the more that we checked into it, what we found that during the germination process, there's natural bacteria that take the fiber, they break it down, and they actually provide nitrogen to the seed. So that was where the increase in the protein was occurring. It was a self-fertilization method that is built within seeds. So you're getting higher protein values. You're getting higher availability of the different proteins. You're getting the enzymes in there. You're having the building blocks for the body to repair itself, even as far as glutathione, for the liver to be breaking down different toxins. The barley has all the building blocks for the glutathione production within the liver. So it is a very, it's an excellent food. And there's, I guess, different people will come back and you know, will, I get the question, you know, will it cure this, will it cure that? And cure is really not a good word to use. Because it is a food, it's something that needs to be taken every day, and the body will continue to reconstruct or keep, let's say, a malady or a problem at bay. It just won't be occurring. The joints and the ligaments, they're going to be freer. There's going to be a higher energy level, and the person is just going to have that overall well-being.
I get this. I mean, what you're saying is you're supporting health. You're not fighting an illness. You're building wholeness. That's
right. That's right. And it's interesting because we do give a guarantee on the product, and when I have to admit, you know, in doing this, Martin, that the scales are really tipped in my favor. Okay, and you know, out of 25 years, I don't even think I have a handful of people that have asked for their money back. But what ends up happening, you know, I'll get a phone call, and you may have had some yourself. Somebody wants their money back, and you say, okay, well, look at, just finish the product. I want you to use it all, and then wait a week and give me a call. And usually within that 1 week waiting time, I get a panic phone call. I need the product. Air freight it to me. I really didn't realize, you know, what it was doing. And health is all relative. When I'm feeling well, I'm feeling well. I've got the energy. I can get out. I can go and do things. All of a sudden, when my body is deprived of the different building blocks, the standard eicosanoid metabolism kicks in, and the brain all of a sudden, it's feeling the pain. That the organs are trying to say, look at here, get back on that program. And so that's where, you know, when I say the scales are tilted in my favor, I know what's going to happen. And it's exciting to see then people come back and say, oh, I really, really need that. And they realize that it's a food. It's not a drug. It's not masking anything. It's just helping the body build its health.
That's great. So to review, you're picking barley because of its capacity to heal the gut. You mentioned the glutathione. Yes. Or I think it would be L-glutamic acid that it's delivering, right?
Yeah, it's glucosamine.
Glucosamine, pardon me.
Yeah, when you're doing the tests on glucosamine, there's 3 amino acids there that, you know, they have to pick one or the other. We were looking at the glucosamine, and the research I was doing, it showed that the gut needed the glucosamine.
Right. I mean, in my business, people have been supplementing with L-glutamic acid all the time as a conversion of fat into muscle. Like, especially people who exercise will find it that it's helping very much to build structure, build muscles.
Oh yes, and the number 2 barley, like the different athletes that get going on that, like the comments that I get back are, like, this stuff is better than steroids. Like, I'm running faster, I'm pushing more weights, I'm leaner, I'm meaner, and yes. There's the different videos, you know, that we have of some of the different athletes that have taken it, what their comments are. There's Christina Smith. She was one of the ladies of the century. She got women's bobsledding into the Olympics. And then there was a couple of other guys that I've had that do a lot of running, and
I remember you mentioned that you supported a Canadian equestrian team, correct?
We did, yeah.
Could you share a story about that? Take a few minutes to tell it.
Sure. That was at the Beijing Olympics, and if we go back and look at the results on the Beijing Olympics on the horse jumping, we took a #1, and the one rider that we had him along with his horse on the barley, and prior to qualifying, he didn't know whether he'd be able to qualify for the Olympics. And towards the end, like, his horse was just winning all the jumping contests, and I think the value of the horse went from like $500,000 to $2 million because of all the wins that were occurring.
And he only had to spend a few thousand on the barley, or did you sponsor it?
I sponsored it. Yeah.
So he should have given you half of his stud fees for getting him all that money, right?
Well, or the sale, I would have taken that too, But no, we just had the opportunity to be able to sponsor them. But we've done other race horses, and the racehorse will, in 1 second, travel about 5 lengths. And we were taking up to 5 seconds off their time around the track. So that's the difference between, last place and first place, like 25 lengths. So
right.
It was, and that the reason for that, it gets down into bone density and really the physiology of what the bones actually do and how they build strength and stamina. And even with the athletes, the bone density increased, and consistently we see, people that have low bone density, in 6 months, all of a sudden, their bone density is well below their age.
Great. Okay, so let's get a bit practical. Let's just talk about the product in a summary. So we have, I'll just show it. We have these two types. We have the type 1, type 2 of 1 pound Barley Gold.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a label. But the point of that is that, so we offer this product. #1, let's help people decide when they choose #1 over #2.
Yes. Okay. Well, #1 is used for virtually all blood types except for O blood types to start. Okay. And because of the high protein values in the #2, that's why we start O blood types there, and also diabetics. Now, I need to go into a bit of an explanation on the diabetic end, but what we found, as far as the #1 is concerned, it really helps build bone mass, and it helps heal the intestine extremely well, and all the other blood types other than the O really need the #1. Now, not saying that they cannot graduate to #2. They can. I would suggest being on the #1 for at least 3 or 4 months before graduating. Now, what the #2 does, it really builds muscle mass. Okay. Now, most women that you talk to, they do not want to look like a linebacker. So unless they're a diabetic, I don't start them on the #2. But like for women, I suggest taking, say, a tablespoon. When they get to the maintenance, they're taking 1 heaping tablespoon of the #1 and the 1 heaping tablespoon of the #2, and that usually balances things out really, really well.
Great. Okay, so we've covered that. This is the Barley Gold, and when you take it,
what's the difference between the #1 and the #2? I missed.
Oh, well, the #1 is an old variety of barley. The #2 is an ancient barley. Okay, and as an ancient barley, like the yields on it are very low, but just the genetics in that allows me to get a higher bushel weight. The number one, it runs at about 56-pound bushel weight. The number two will run at anywhere from 67 to 70-pound bushel weights. So there's a huge amount of nutrients. The number one protein levels will normally, when it's harvested, it'll run at about 12%. After the gem process and the treatment, we get an effective 18% protein level. Number two will have a 27% protein value, and after the gem process, the effective protein is at about 47%. So with all blood types that need high amounts of protein, that works very, very well. Now, if we're looking at diabetics, certainly in healing the gut is very, very important. Getting the proteins in, but as is very important to help the body rebuild. But the initial healing of the intestine, getting toxins out, getting nutrients in, it relieves the pressure on the pancreas to be producing the triglycerides or fats. And see, all toxins are fat soluble. So a lot of diabetics, they're overweight. A lot of the type 2 diabetics, and you know, the doctor is saying, well, you know, you need to go on a diet, and they're looking at this and saying, you know, I'm starving to death. You know, I can't eat this rabbit food. Well, by taking a high protein product, it's going to satisfy that hunger. Then as the body gets the toxins out and the other nutrients in, what ends up occurring, there's a switch, that switch that's within the pancreas gets thrown over to balance the blood sugar level rather than producing more triglycerides. So all of a sudden, like we've had different people that have had that have gone into the doctor. They've had extremely high, or they need to get on the insulin or the metformin, and very high numbers. And within a week, they go back, and their blood sugar level is normal without taking any products.
So is this level 1 or level 2 that you're talking about?
The number 2.
Number 2. So level 1 is for bone density and general nutrition. Level 2 is if you're diabetic and you want to build muscle.
It just comes down to the blood type. All right. So all blood types and diabetics go on number 2.
And so if you're one of the other types and you go on level 1, you never really want to go on to the level 2?
Well, unless you're a woman, you're going to probably want to take a tablespoon of each.
Oh, okay, so the ultimate goal is one of each.
For women. And then men will go on to number 2. Now, the other thing, and I just highlighted it, I was talking about the eicosanoid metabolism. And what eicosanoid metabolism is, it's how the cells and as a group of organs, how it talks to the subconscious brain. And it's what gives us our cravings and what we want to eat. And the eicosanoid metabolism, and with the barley, like, I mean, I can give a whole list, and Martin, you can give a list of do's and don'ts. You should eat this and you shouldn't eat that, etc., etc. Well, when the eicosanoid metabolism comes in, like, you can, the first thing that's going to draw you to the food is the sight of it. You know, does it look good? Is it fresh? Then there's going to be the smell. Then there's going to be the taste. Well, when it comes down to the taste end, the body is going to do an immediate chemical reaction, and you're going to get one of 4 responses. Okay, And if the eicosanoid metabolism is really working right, I mean, the food can come up the same way it went down. It can go through you like a freight train, or you can have a very lethargic, almost like a hangover type of reaction. Or the fourth response is when endorphins and dopamines are released, and you're really feeling good. You got high energy. That was a good meal. That's what I wanted. And so I tell people, you know, or I ask them, I say, well, how does your body feel? Like when you're taking the number one, how do you feel? Is it good? Like if you're taking number two and you're feeling sluggish, or you're taking number one and you're feeling sluggish and the other one's better, you know, you have to listen to that eicosanoid metabolism. And it's kind of funny because, you know, as a man, I understand this, that like we're taught you eat everything on your plate. And what ends up occurring, that as the efficiency of the intestine is working at a much higher level, all of a sudden you get a plate full of food and you can't eat it all. And you know, if you force yourself to keep on eating it, or it just comes back up. You know, the body just says no more. And I get calls from people that, you know, I used to have 6 cups of coffee a day. I can barely get half a cup of coffee down. In one instance, I had one young fella. He was very overweight. He was probably pushing 400 pounds, and he wanted to get going on the program. And I said, well, look, there's 2 questions that I'd like to ask before you get going. And he says, well, what's that? And I said, well, the first question is, do you want to lose weight? And he says, well, look at me, I'm huge. I want to lose weight. And I said, well, everybody, you know, they like to carry a badge around. You know, I'm overweight, you know, I get to park closer to the office door, and hey, you know, on your way down to the coffee machine, grab me a jelly donut and a coffee, you know, because I'm big, right? You know, and I just can't move the same as everybody else. But other people, the badge they wear, you know, they may have heart problems, or, you know, you think you've got it bad, well, here's all my problems. But I wanted to get that out on the table with this young fella. And he says, well, what's the second question? And I said, well, how far is it from home to work? And he says, what does that have to do with taking the barley? And I said, well, answer the question first. And he says, about 40 minutes. And I said, well, before you start, I want you to make mental note of where all the public washrooms are. Because when the body says, I now have to go to the bathroom, it's not now, it's right now. Okay? I gave him a call back in about 40 days. He was losing 1.5 pounds a day. And he said, thanks very much for letting me know on as far as the bowel movements and that were concerned. He was having 8 bowel movements a day. And we're not talking diarrhea. They were good bowel movements. But again, when that eicosanoid metabolism said, it is now time, you've got 3 minutes or 5 minutes to find a washroom, that's what he was doing. And the silly thing was that I gave him a call back in 60 days, asked him how he was doing. He says, well, I've gone off the program. I said, well, you were doing so well. Why did you want to go off the program? And he says, well, my clothes are hanging on me. I have to go out and buy all new clothes. And I said, well, you know, we talked about that at the beginning. You know, you wanted to lose weight. And he said, well, the other reason is I like to eat. And he could barely get half a hamburger down and French fries. You know, he couldn't eat a full combo meal. And prior to getting on the barley, he was having like 3 or 4 hamburgers, half a dozen French fries, 3 or 4 milkshakes. And, you know, of course, the pancreas at that point was looking at it and saying, well, we've got all these toxins in here, so we'll just converted all over onto the triglycerides or fats. And so that's a prime example of how the eicosanoid metabolism will work. He just couldn't eat. He was losing weight. He was getting rid of the toxins. The body said, hey, what are we carrying this extra weight around? And on a weight loss type of program, generally what I see is men will lose pounds and women will lose inches. Okay, so and women are naturally just they have more fat, but as their energy level goes up, all of a sudden they're doing more work around the house. They want to get out and walk. They're just doing more activity, and so they convert the fat into muscle, and muscle is more dense. So all of a sudden they start fitting into clothing that they hadn't used for quite a while because they converted that into a muscle weight rather than having the fat weight. Now, notwithstanding that all women can't lose weight. Yes, they can lose weight, okay, but I'm just talking what I see on the average.
Great. Okay, so what I would like to do now is switch topics a bit.
Okay.
We also want to offer people the product that's the flax lignans.
Yes.
And so let's just talk about that. Could you please just outline what's special about it and how yours are different from the regular? And
okay, if first off, it's the growing part of the lignans that we start right from square one, right in the field. Okay, then of course everything is going through the GEM process, the density alteration, and the nutrient stabilization here.
Okay, so let me start it off. Let me start it off one more time.
Okay.
And so this is the official marker for let's talk about lignans. So Ken, let's tell our clients about the flax lignans. They are produced using the same methodology as your other products.
Yes, they are.
So let's start in the field. We grow flax seed, yes?
Yes. And what we noticed that in just using the GEM process on the seed that goes into the ground, we actually changed the growth regulator sequences so that we will produce a root that's up to 5 times more extensive. So you really have a bully plant out in the field. So when it comes down to putting nutrients in that seed, getting the higher bushel weights that we talked about earlier, we do that same thing with the flax. And essentially what ends up happening is that we increase the lignin content, again, significantly, that's within the seed coat.
All right, so let's actually try and say, why would a person care to add flax lignans to their nutrition?
Okay, with the studies that have been out there, and I'm not talking studies that I've done, but just generally if you get on the internet and just see what lignans do, they do 2 things. Number 1, they boost the immune system, okay, and number 2, they balance hormones. Now, in boosting the immune system, well, it is, if you're getting the flu, maybe you might have it for a day or 2 days rather than 2 weeks, okay? Or you may not get it at all. When it comes down to balancing hormones, like with women, that's just a huge problem. Certainly as far as the different hormonal cancers are concerned, it all seems to come back to the hormones and the actual balancing of the hormones as to how the body can fight those problems. And what we had done, we had actually sponsored a test. This is not a medical trial. There were medical personnel that were involved, but we had 400 children that were all HIV/AIDS positive. And within 60 days, those children, 97%, their viral loads were normal. Now, these were children that were dying. It was done over in Africa, and it was done by medical staff. And their immune systems just built that they were able to fight the disease.
So you're saying that these children, instead of dying, continued to live?
Well, they did. Now, where the problems started coming in was that, of course, over in Africa, they don't have a lot of money. And they were wanting us to continue to supply the Lignans, and we weren't able to. Okay, and
the costs are too high for that.
Yeah, they were too high. Now, within 3 years of those children that got straightened around, there was probably 60% of them had passed away. 40% of them were still alive. But we needed to continue the program, look at the complete diet that they were taking, possibly getting on barley or other high nutrient foods so that the body could continue to battle any problems there.
All right. So let's go back to, so the lignans are doing two things: stimulate immune system and balance hormones. Yes. So I guess anybody these days, xenoestrogens is the most common thing going. People affected by plastics and wrong foods and whatnot, and chemicals, petrochemicals, volatile organic compounds. I don't know of anybody these days who does not have hormonal disruption.
Yeah. What I found, Martin, is like when men take the product, it's really a non-event, other than they're just not getting sick. Okay. Certainly, if we're talking the different hormonal cancers, okay, now we're talking a different subject there again, and we see huge changes that start to occur, that the body is able to combat the problem. Okay, like any of the studies that they've done on lignans, they don't come out and say cure. They say that it's very promising. It's very exceptional results. Okay, but there's, and a lot of people, they're looking for a cure. Just, what's the silver bullet? And there isn't a silver bullet. Like even with the barley, to say that it's going to fix all these problems, 80% of the problems are gut related. So you start healing the gut, things get straightened around. Now, if we're talking hormonal problems, yes, the lignans are going to help out incredibly. But this is where a person has to assess their health, and their health is their responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility. It's not, their spouses. No, it's their responsibility. So they need to be able to talk with people like yourself. What have you found out? What have you seen? They have to pick up the torch, so to speak, to find out how, or what is really best for themselves in their routine.
Right. Okay. So how would a person use the flax lignans?
Within our jars, there's a little teaspoon in there, and you take one of those teaspoons in the day. Now, what I found is the best time to take the lignans are later in the evening. Okay, because they're mucilaginous, what they will tend to do is coat the intestine, and during the day when you're having your other food, you want the absorption of the nutrients. You don't need a coating there. So the best time is the 1 teaspoon later on in the day, certainly after supper, maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, taking it.
Okay, great. I guess that explains it. All right. What I would also like to do then is talk about these other products. We haven't gotten How do we go about this?
We could start by going back to, well, what do we do on the farm? You know, how do we get the higher bushel values and things like that, if you like. And I can go through those different products and exactly, you know, how they work and what they do. Okay?
Yes. Yeah, I would like to address that because we have, I guess, people who want to grow their own gardens and also people who want to do farming, right?
And that's a great way to lead in right there, Martin.
Okay, so let's just cut out the last few minutes and start into that. Scott, are you able to maybe help lead into this? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, these are all products that are not on Life Enthusiast.
Okay, right? So they are not on Life Enthusiast, but we will stock them and we will carry them. I definitely, I sent you a spreadsheet, Scott. Did you see that?
Yep. Do you want to wait till you have the products? That might be better because we've been going for an hour now.
Okay. Well, I'm good with this following exception. So when Ken goes away, it's going to be a lot harder to to do anything.
I'm going to be here till at least Christmas, Martin.
Okay.
And the internet connection in Medellin is fine too. It's not like it's, you know, nothing happening.
Well, sometimes what ends up happening, Scott, down there is that with the internet, it's not as consistent as it is here. Like I've had it 2 or 3 days, or I've been, you know, that we've got cut out of the internet, or there's just been a problem. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but you know, just the time that we're trying to get something put together, there may be that problem. Okay, just as long as you.
But I mean, it's not like we have to have it done by Tuesday. I mean, if you have a problem, we can do it the next week. So.
That's right.
And I think it's better if we've got the pages up and we just pull the pages in.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I have some work to be done on that because we have multiple products. So I guess Ken and I will have to talk and arrange the demo product and all the details.
Now, see, the other thing too, Martin, I have got tons of articles, like as far as the Instagrowth and what it does. I can send you a truckload of paperwork there, and you can look at sorting out exactly what you'd want, or you know, to put on the website, or what you think that you would need. I've got those introductions already put together, so yeah, it might be good that I get you a bunch of that so that you could read through it. You know, whether you're looking at making your tomatoes grow or build a compost pile, or gee whiz, I'd like a better lawn, sort of a thing. What do I do?
Okay, so Scott, do you want to record some closing sentences here for the program?
Yeah, I guess we might as well. All right, so thank you very much, Ken. That was amazing information. I'm really excited about the Lignan and the Barley Gold, and actually I've been trying the Barley Gold now, so I'm looking forward. I just started getting it, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It's available on the Life Enthusiast website, www.life-enthusiast.com. And Martin, if somebody needs to talk to you, maybe get a few more details for their specific situation ironed out, how can they contact you?
If you have any questions, contact us on the phone. The number is 866-543-3388. This is Martin and Scott and Ken Campbell for Life Enthusiast, restoring vitality to you and to the planet.